Hello, so we are going to do a little bluebird painting today. And first I want to show you my painting setup. So here is my little easel. It has an angle and I just put a board, and this is a acrylic painting board. And I find it very helpful to just be a backing board for my watercolor painting. Here's a paper. And this one is a student grade watercolor paper, cold press, 140 pounds. And I'm going to use this to do some exercise first. Then we're going to switch to a better cotton paper to do the painting. And here is my palette. It's just a dinner plate. And my 2 cups of water. One is to rinse my brush, and another one I want to keep it clean, so I paint directly with the clear water. Okay. And here are the brushes. So primarily, I will just use a size 8 sable brush, and I have another similar size sable brush, and I actually use this one to soften my edges. And here are 2 bigger brush, and this is a Chinese calligraphy brush, and this is a cat tongue brush, and both brushes are softer, and I use it for cover big areas or do the background. And I also have this little brush. It's a silver brush, size 8, and it can go into more details if I want, like for example for the eyes. And I also have a bunch of other brushes that I use occasionally for different reasons, and I will share more with you when we get to use them. Okay. All right, so here is my reference photo. And I have this from the pixabay.com, and it's a free resource for reference photos. Here's our little bluebird. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually now to paint this bird directly, but I want to warm up and do some studies by just warming up and play a bit. And I find this process is very important and helpful for me to just relax and get into the creative zone. Because to go into the creative zone is not about having so many disciplines and having so many results that I want to achieve. That actually limits the creativity. But we're normally having so much results-driven process, so we forget how to relax and coming into an unlimited zone and just play and have fun. And as we play, we actually enjoy the process more and surrender more to the unknown. And that's when the magic happens. So I'm just now picking up some blue color, and I have several blue color here. I'm just going to put it on to just give it a try and see what happens with different blues. And honestly, I'm already liking that gorgeous colors that's happening. But it's not the same kind of blue that I'm looking at from the reference photo. So let's try again and try maybe a little bit more. Ultramarine blue, is it right? Or some violet, I don't know. So we'll just play and find out. So I'm finding out that in my pigment, I don't really have a color that's directly mimic the color of this Bluebird. But that is really okay. We don't have to always copy what we see exactly. And I will go to what colors makes me feel good. And I really like this combination right now. And it's a mix between ultramarine blue and the phthalo blue. So it's not the same as the reference, but I love it enough so I can continue to go on with painting. And I think this is really helpful because, you know, sometimes we are limited with our supplies and we don't have to go out to buy all the supplies, but just being creative and being relaxed with what we already have. And I'm seeing some purple colors. I'm loving it. I always like purple, so I'm going to honor myself and to get some purple color. And the next interesting color about this Bluebird is it has this orangish yellow color, and I think it's actually a perfect raw sienna color. Okay, all right. I think I'm having the lovely colors, and I'm also noticing a little bit of the tiny bit more of I think yellow ochre kind of color on the little bird. So I'm going to try to put on some yellow ochre. It's actually even more like an azo yellow. So, okay. All right. Okay, see, I'm playing with the colors and let them mingle. I'm getting really informed at the same time. And I just love this watermark. It's so beautiful. So I'm enjoying myself and enjoying painting. Okay. All right, let me do a favorite thing, which is to spatter some colors. And now I feel in myself much more freedom. I feel so good. And then I can see what's happening on the paper and see all the interesting effect that watercolor is making on its own. And that's the purpose of the game. How magic happens. Okay, all right. So I feel like I can come out and do a little bit of painting of the green bird. And I feel like I cannot stop painting now. I'm sure you have similar experience. Just want to keep going with it. Something drives us from within. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Now we are back for our painting, and look, after a little while, just the colors are doing some very beautiful things. Look at all this fusion from my final splash, and that's really wonderful. Okay, I feel more inspired, and let me touch and get some of the water off and put this aside. And we can do our painting. So this paper is a Saunders Waterford watercolor paper, cold press, 140 pounds, and I use it a lot. It has two sizes, and it doesn't really make a difference for me. I haven't found, so I'm just going to use this size. And before I start with the painting with my little bird, and I want to remember, so as I'm starting with my painting and look at my little bird, I want to remember why I'm doing this painting, because I notice as I am preparing and videoing myself, I become a little nervous, and I notice myself is wanting to be good, to have a good result. That seems to be occupying myself, and that's a wonderful intention. And at the same time, I notice it's taking the fun, the creative joy out of the process. So I want to remind myself again why I'm painting this. I am painting this bluebird because the bluebird is special for me and for many people, and they are the signs of hope. And in some very difficult situations in my life, I actually saw bluebirds, and that kept me going and gave me hope. And bluebirds are also the first birds that showed up in winter when spring is just around the corner. So I see them as the first messengers of spring. And I do feel very drawn to paint this bluebird, especially at this time of the year. So just reminding me of myself of this, I feel like I can relax more and be more focused in painting the bluebird. Okay, so let's put this here. So today we are going to paint this bird without a pencil sketch. And even without the pencil sketch, we can actually still sketch. So here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at my paper right now, and I see this bluebird is kind of placed right here, something like that. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of the light blue and see, okay, something like this. Maybe eyes here, and something lightly, the shape is like so. I can soften it if I want to. Some maybe like this. Okay. Right, I think that could get me going. Enough of the information. And see these lines are actually very light, and you don't have to worry about it later. Alright, okay. Now I'm going to start. Using my small brush, I create a mixture with burnt umber and Payne's gray. And then I just draw out the shape of the eye and leave out the highlight and fill the rest of this little circle. Then I rinse my brush and lift out a little bit of the pigment to give it more of a natural watermark effect. And then I just still use a clear brush and gently touch around the eye, and then let the eye fuse into the big shape. And you will see some pigments are lost right here, but that's okay, and we can add a second layer. So this is the first layer, the first wash we're doing. And it doesn't have to be the exact intensity you will want in the end. But we do try to get the right intensity as much as we can. But watercolor does dry lighter, so if you don't get it, don't worry, we'll get it at later layers. And now I am using clear water and changed into a bigger brush. It's size 8. And then cover the body of the bird with clear water, because now we can have a more natural fusion of the colors, so it creates this warm and fuzzy effect. So with my clear water on, I bring in some blue color, starting with the head area. And actually, I am skipping a little bit around the head where there are highlights. So there's some natural skipping of the paper to leave out some highlight. And now I pick up some lighter turquoise blue color and drop it on where I see lighter colors and where there's more light reflected. I notice my water is drying, so I put on more clear water to keep the paper moist, so I can do more of the color wet in wet. Now I'm mixing turquoise blue with what's that? Blue, Prussian blue, yes. And it's not exactly like the blue color in the bird, we talked about that, but that's okay. And we'll just let the color flow and see. This is a really beautiful color flow right now, so we try to keep that flow going. And now I add more of the ultramarine blue, so this color is closer to the bird we're seeing. When I want to have a darker color, I actually take off a little bit more water and then pick up more pigment, so you can have more intensity in the colors. And notice I'm not covering the whole surface. I'm leaving some space when my brush touch on the paper, leaving some space for the color to fan out, to diffuse. So I got my wings in, and now I'm putting on some turquoise blue color and to go over the body where it's covered by the wings. And here onto the tail, because the tail actually has a strength, I feel. So when I feel the strength, I want my brush to be more like a dry brush, to glide on the paper quickly, more quickly. There's energy to it. So this part doesn't have to be fused and soft. There can be some clear brush mark and give it a nice contrast with the rest of the body. So I'm basically getting my first wash, first layer in. So I took off some of the water on my brush, by dabbing it on the paper towel, and then go into the pigment directly. So I have more pigment, less water on my brush tip, and go in to define some of the darkness that I see, especially on the wings. So what I'm having in terms of consistency of the mixture is more of creamy and closer to buttery. And this is a kind of mixture we talk about a lot in the wet in wet technique. And I do have a tutorial on my channel to give you more information if you are not familiar with the wet in wet technique. I will have that video in the description box below. So yes, now with really like buttery pigment mixture, I can get the darkness in much more concentrated fashion, so it doesn't fuse out. So I'm looking at my reference photo and see where is the darkest dark, and I'm adding it now. So for me, I like to have a light touch on my subject, so I don't go over my subject with all the darkness, but very selective, just the darkest dark. Now, ideally, I would have like my upper body have texture in, but because this is at the point, it's already drying, so I'm going to wait for that part to be completely dry and then to add on more of the texture. So this is a tip if you are doing wet in wet and your paper is drying. Now just leave it alone. You don't have to do it everything at once. So we'll just wait for it to dry and do a second layer. So like right now, I did get the much of the darkness in for my wings and tail, but for the head and the upper body, I didn't get to it. So I will just wait for it to dry and do a second layer. So now, while waiting that to dry, I'm looking where I can paint next. And I think I'm ready to come to the beak. Yeah, a bird without a beak just looks kind of funny, isn't it? So again, I changed into my little brush. It comes to a fine point, and use light color first to sketch out the shape of the beak and the chin. So here is again the tip when you paint without a pencil sketch. Use lighter color to sketch first, and then you can add your darkness once you're happy with the position. So now I'm changing into a darker color, and that is a mixture between ultramarine blue and some burnt umber. So with the same mixture on my brush, I go back to the eye, and the eye is already dry at this point, so I'm adding a second layer. So with just a little bit of touch, the eyes start to pop up. So I'm looking at my photo and very carefully again to add just a little bit of the darkness to give it some texture, but without making it looking too tight. So now we are actually starting a second layer, second wash. It's not really a wash, but more like defining the details. So now I'm coming to the belly of the bird, and I use a raw sienna color, and again it's light color first, so I can get the basic position in without committing too much with a darker color. So once I'm happy with the shape, then I can come in with a darker color. So I am using clear water again. Before I paint in the feathers, I use clear water to wet it. Now I can come in so the color will fuse more naturally. And this is a raw sienna I'm putting in right now. And again, notice that I am not covering the whole area. I leave some space for the color to fuse, and then I can have some natural lighter area, so there's a nice variation of tones even in a small area. Bring that same color down into the belly area. The bird feels like more like a bird now. And dropping some light blue color for the shadow part of the belly. Now with less water on my brush, I want to darken the area underneath the chain. So in the raw sienna, I mixed in a little bit more burnt amber, so the value is darker and also cooler in the tone. Now I'm coming in for the feet because I want the viewer to focus on the head, the eyes of the bird. So for everywhere else, I want to loosen up. So here is with the feet, it's actually just some dry brush mark and to give that impression of the feet, and I'm not trying too hard to define it. So here is a looseness coming. We're being selective where we have the focus we want people to see. We want to define it really well. And where is more secondary or even the background, then we loosen up and without having to do too much of the definition. So if you are someone who are feeling that your painting is too tight, then here is where you can pay attention. Next is just review and reflect on your painting and see if you are defining everywhere on your subject, or are you having a hierarchy, like where is most important and you give it most definition, right? And here I'm painting this tree trunk where this bird is standing on. And again, it's going to be really loose because that's a a support. So not something I really want people to see a whole lot. So I'm just putting in some patterns of this bark looking thing on my paper, and I used the burnt umber and then Payne's gray to give that grayish color for the texture. So here is a little bit of negative painting to carve out the shape of the tail. Okay, now I feel like I can start to take a little break. I'm basically done with my first layer, and what's going on next is to define the bird better and to put in some background. And here's where I feel like rather than using a blow dryer to dry my paper and keep going, I want to take a break because I feel there's some tension building up within me, and I want a more clear mind to continue. So I left my little painting table and I got outside to see what my animals are doing on the farm. It's deep winter here, but there's still a lot of fun going on. So I just talked with my animals, had fun, looked at the sky, raised up my head, and I feel more relaxed and have a better idea on what I'm going to do next. And then I come back to the studio and continue. And the first thing I want to do is actually to soften some of the edges. So I use a brush. It's a synthetic brush, and I gently wet it a little bit and start to scrub the portion on the edge of this little bird. So where I want to leave some to reduce or minimize some of the edge so it's not a full line enclosed, then I just scrub it and remove some of the pigment, some of the outline. And with less circled feeling, I mean when I had less edge, this bird can feel more lively. There's more of in and out of the space feeling. If you have a complete outline, it's going to look like cut out. Unless that's the effect you want to go. For me, I like to lose some edge. So here is a lost and found edge I'm working on. Alright, so I feel I'm ready, so I'm going to put on some background to bring out this beautiful little bird even further out. And I'm changing to my big brush, and first use clear water. I kind of outlined where I want the water, the background to go, and I want to actually trap a little bit of light on top of the beak and on top of the bird. For the rest, I want the body to be more integrated with the background. So that's what I'm doing. Use clear water to cover that area I want to have background color in. And this is really good way too, like we didn't really had a plan or had a little plan painting without background, right? And without sketch, but we're just sketching with clear water now. So to have a little sense, I'm jumping in with some azo yellow mixed with a little bit of sap green And you can see now the light I trapped on top of the bird. And just that little bit gives a very nice impact to the painting. I feel naturally I am a minimalist as it comes to background. Some artists love to paint the whole background, and that's absolutely gorgeous. And for me, I just like to add a little bit background, necessary enough to bring out the subject. And in that way, I keep my painting light. So now I'm changing the background color into more of the grayish color. So it's more like what we see in the reference photo. And also because again, we are further away from the focus of the bird, which is the eye. I am lowering the saturation. So it's more grayish, coolish, so this area are not attracting attention, but just be a more of supportive element of the painting. Now it starts to feel there's a little context where this bird is in. I am spattering a little bit to make it more fun and lively. And somehow I feel like I need some pink, some rosy color. And I don't know exactly why, but I just go for it follow my feeling. You know, when painting is so much about feeling, it's not just a logical or intellectual process. It's a wonderful emotional and spiritual process in addition to being intellectual. So whenever I feel something, I don't question myself too much. I just go with it. So I now really like that with a little bit of pink, it does warm up this painting. So you see, intuitively we know things, and our mind don't always. So. So I am happy with this minimal background I have in here. And now I want to add more texture to my focal area, which around the head and the upper body. So I changed into my small brush. It's a size 6 silver brush. It's a mixture of synthetic and squirrel hair, natural hair. So I'm looking at my reference photo and I'm putting in the darkest dark. And it's a mixture again with burnt umber and some Payne's gray. And I am very selective, so only put in where I see is absolutely necessary. And this is really personal. So I feel I'm naturally drawn to lighter vibrations. So I am minimal as putting in darks. But if you feel differently, by all means, please honor how you feel, and that is most important. When this painting, this creative process is authentic to you, it has the most life and most beauty and inspiration. So listen to your heart, as we always say, and enjoy honoring your own heart by painting. Now I am using just some really dry brush on dry paper to give a little bit texture on the chin area. And I'm careful not to overdo my dry brush, otherwise it will start to feel spiky. And see where I feel it may be spiky, I just use clear water to soften it. Now coming to the upper body, the upper back of the bird, the paper is already dry, so see that I'm using kind of the side of my brush and glide onto my paper, skip some and leave some marks. These are the dry brush marks, and they are really lovely to create more of the effect of texture. But here is now what I was just saying, that the more dry brush mark you have on, it will start to feel spiky. So rather than soft and fuzzy like a bird. So now here I change into a larger brush and then use clear water, start to soften where I feel it's becoming too spiky. I do like how this final layer is adding the texture and more depth for the little bird. I hope you can see that because all the final details and strengthening of the values I'm getting in, this bird is starting to show up pretty strongly, and her eyes is becoming alive and with strength, which is what I love about the bluebird. So now coming to final details to strengthen the wings a little bit with some darkness here and there, just selectively. These final light yet distinct touches of the darkness is really making a difference. Alright, I feel like I'm happy with this little bird, and I'm just going to do some final touch, which is to spatter some blue colors here and there to bring more of the atmosphere and liveliness to the painting. So here you go, the final painting, the little bluebird. I hope you find this tutorial helpful and get to enjoy painting your own bird. I will see you at the next tutorial. Happy painting!